Welcome. I am John Arthur Raeber. I was born in 1947 in St. Louis, Missouri. I've lived in the St. Louis area, including the Ozarks, and in San Francisco. I am a Pretendian. I belong to no Native American tribe, federally recognized or not. But I do believe I have Native American heritage, and I believe I have a right to claim that heritage without being an acknowledged member of one of the 574 tribes recognized by the Bureau of Building Affairs, the BIA. My mother told me and my siblings that her grandmother was Cherokee. My mother never sought recognition as Cherokee. My sister found records going back 4 generations, which included the Cherokee grandmother, but she found no evidential proof mother was right or wrong. During my sophomore year in high school, I read a book that described the Native American vision quest, where a young man spends 3 days and 2 nights alone in the woods with minimal water and no food. During that summer, I had an opportunity to do my own vision quest and found my spirit guide, a bear. At that time, I didn't know it, but my middle name, Arthur, is Welsh for bear. My last name, Raeber, spelled backwards, is R-E-B-E-A-R, which could be read as regarding the bear. And the word for bear in the Cherokee language is Yona, Y-O-N-A, which is about as close as you can get to my first name, John. Some years later, my brother gave me an antler-handled flint knife, my first Stone Age tool. Since then, I've spent over 50 years researching my roots. Using my training as a research assistant in my postgraduate studies, I've come to cherish what I believe is my Native American heritage, even though I am not tribal. Much of what has been written about the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the BIA, and the U.S. process of political recognition of Native American tribes. Based on my research, I can say without hesitation that those Indians who have attained political status as a recognized tribal citizen, where they live on reservations or outside the boundaries of their tribal land, are heroes in every sense of the word. They and their ancestors have survived the greatest attempt at deracination ever conceived. And in their efforts, they have salvaged what they could of their identity during the 200 years of subjugation and assimilation of the original peoples of North America by the United States government. Much of value has been lost, but without those heroes, nothing of our heritage would exist today. Those of us who were not involved have no right to judge what was done by those who suffered through those centuries. The 1975 change in the BIA from subjugation and assimilation to promoting self-determination was the result of the elimination of the number one threat the United States government feared from our society, the Democratic Republican matrilineal clan culture that was exterminated by the end of the 1960s. The determination of those who survived and banded together to ensure the sovereignty of the recognized tribes and their efforts to establish self-determination creates a foundation to reclaim at least the memories of the Democratic Republican matrilineal culture. European monotheism, conquest by discovery, tribes, chiefs, patriarchal society, and land ownership by individuals are too entrenched to dislodge. But at least we can still strive to bring back memories of the ways of the clan village society, thanks to these heroes. The Clan Village Society of North America, when it was Turtle Island, is not viable today. But it can provide food for thought regarding family, sharing, cooperation, individual freedom, the value of effort, representation, rights, and responsibilities. It is the concept of rights and responsibilities that must now be addressed to acknowledge the coexistence of tribal citizens and pretendians. Tribal nations have the right to protect their sovereignty, but that right only extends to those issues where actions negatively impact that sovereignty. Only the tribal nations have the right to their identity. An individual who is not a citizen of that tribal nation should not identify with that nation's identity as recorded by the BIA, such as the various Cherokee tribes, the Apaches, Choctaw, Navajo, Mohawks, etc. Only tribal nations have the right to determine who are their citizens and how the tribal nation makes that determination. And it is appropriate protection for all tribal nations for the U.S. to make it illegal to sell art as American Indian art if the artist is not a recognized tribal citizen. But for the tribal nations to demand their rights, they must also accept responsibilities concerning the rights of the pretendians. Tribal nations have a responsibility to respect the right of non-tribal individuals to claim ancestry to those who did not migrate to North America, even without evidence where that claim does not have a negative impact on the tribal nations. I have the right to believe my mother's claim to have a Cherokee grandmother, even though there are no records to prove her right or wrong. That does not give me the right to call myself a Cherokee, so I have a responsibility to clarify I am not tribal. But the line between rights and responsibilities blur when it comes to how I can express my right to ancestry. Can I say that I am a member of the Cherokee grandmother people when it can be clearly established that there are more people claiming Cherokee ancestry than there are included in the tribal rolls? In the 2010 U.S. Census, 819,105 people claimed some Cherokee ancestry. The three BI recognized Cherokee tribes list only 344,700 citizens. This suggests that 58% of those claiming Cherokee ancestry were not tribal. Do the 344,700 Cherokees tribal citizens have the right by sovereignty to deny the right of the 474,405 people who are not claiming tribal affiliation, but only that their family verbal history states they have a Cherokee grandmother? The term Cherokee grandmother relating to people who are not members of the Cherokee tribes is in common use, usually based on the assumption that unless you have a documentation, you cannot have Cherokee ancestry. History provides sufficient evidence of the potential of such undocumented Cherokee grandmother ancestry to allow the rights to those 474,405 people to claim that identity based on family verbal history. It is well known that between the 1790s and 1830, many native people left their Cherokee language villages in Tennessee and Georgia to move north to the Indian territories of that time: Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, and Michigan. Others migrated west of the Mississippi to Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. The matrilineal clan society recognized members of the same or related clans in other villages as cousins, regardless of how distant the village. So many of these clan members found refuge in similar clans in other villages. Others were already assimilating and joined local farmers with both crops and livestock who may or may not have been Indians. Others were able to hide during the assembling and relocation of the eastern Cherokees to reservations in Oklahoma between 1830 and 1850. Some of those who hid became part of the eastern band of Cherokee Indians, who are tribal, but others were able to continue their lives if the settlers moving into the area considered them farmers, shopkeepers, and tradespersons, not Indians. There were also thousands who were herded from the southeast to Oklahoma who got so sick that they were not able to continue the forced march known as the Trail of Tears. How many died? How many survived and became part of the locals who helped care for them? There is no record of how many of the Cherokee people became ill but did not die. Once the soldiers were gone, there was nothing to stop those who survived from staying where they were in Kentucky, Missouri, and Arkansas. There are now some 475,000 people who believe they are the ancestors of those who neither joined the eastern tribe of the Cherokee nor made it to the reservation in Oklahoma. These are the Cherokee grandmother children, pretendians. There is still another group of pretendians who are children removed by the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs to be placed in orphanages with the specific purpose of isolation from their heritage and forced assimilation. These were not orphans who had no family on the reservations. These were children of the clan who were not conforming to the preferred process of assimilation, which included accepting Christianity, being baptized, getting married, and living like the European families with the father as the family leader and the women children as chattel. These children removed from their clans on the reservation were given English names, had their hair cut to no longer than their shoulders. They were discouraged and prevented from using their native languages and were organized into units to perform military drills. It is impossible to guess how many children were removed from the reservations for forced assimilation, but the process and the purpose can be determined based on the results. Children were removed from reservations where they were considered disadvantaged by their situation. Present consensus suggests these disadvantages were the result of poverty, depression, alcoholism, as well as the deaths of their parents. Yet I've not been able to find a description of the actual process. I suspect BIA representatives would go to the reservation missionaries and find out which of the people were assimilating and which were not. Those who attended church, were baptized, received church religious instructions, married, and donated a fair amount to the church were good Indians. Those who attempted to maintain the clan matrilineal society, which focused on the old ways, were considered bad Indians. Since clan mothers were often not married, they would be considered unfit and their children would be removed for their protection. This process would have been standard practice for 5 generations. 1860 to 1880, 1880 to 1900, 1900 to 1920, 1920 to 1940, and 1940 to 1960. By the end of the 1960s, the matrilineal clan society was eliminated. Clans still exist, but the clan society has been assimilated. The ancestors of the children taken from the reservation would have no way of knowing anything about their heritage. Yet is it possible to erase all memories? Those who are able to cling to even the remotest memories are now pretendians. Finally, members of tribes once recognized by the BIA would drop from the BIA list of federally recognized tribes, and those whose ancestry extends beyond the tribal or federally accepted percentage of blood also become pretendians. We exist. We are not tribal, but we have as much right to respect our family memories as the tribal citizens have to protect their own identities. Enough proof exists with those who escaped, those who assimilated early, those who were taken as orphans, and those who were disassociated from their tribal sovereignty, that whatever name you give us, we have the right to believe we have ancestors that did not migrate to this continent in the last 800 years. We can accept that tribal sovereignty has the right to exclude us from being Indians, but we will not accept that our belief in the honesty of our parents is wrong and our belief in our first-person heritage is irrelevant. You have given us a common identity, Pretendians. This is not a name we would have preferred, but it is the Cherokee tribe. If the Cherokee tribes can accept a Muskogean name that means hillbillies, and the Sioux tribes can accept an Ojibwe name that means vipers, we can learn to live with the name Pretendians, at least for now. What we need now is to establish rules we can both respect regarding the rights and responsibilities of both the tribal citizens and the Pretendians. Together we can achieve a whole new level of pride in ourselves, our ancestors, what we have accomplished, and what we can accomplish. According to the Indian Health Services, there are presently 2.56 million tribal American Indians and Alaskan Natives. According to the 2020 census, there are 4.87 million adults claiming American heritage and Alaskan Native heritage. And it is proposed that by 2060, the total population of those claiming American Indian and Alaskan Native heritage will reach 10 million. But even 10 million may not be enough to support to convince members of the U.S. government that our votes are a valid concern. Wannabe pretenders. Because of this, I believe we should include the wannabe pretenders who know their roots are not from here, but who are interested enough to learn who we are, who we were, who we are, and who we aspire to be. People who can prove themselves deserving should be allowed the right of adoption as a wannabe pretendian based on the adoption process outlined in the Haudenosaunee Great Law. As a conclusion, I'd like to state I wear my hair in long braids as a remembrance, a reminder of those orphans who were taken from the tribes and had their hairs shorn to disassociate them from their heritage. Thank you.